That night, I, a 62-year-old mother, was shoved into the freezing basement with my suitcase, while my son's marble kitchen gleamed above. Upstairs, guests raised their wine glasses as my daughter-in-law's laughter drifted through the floorboards. I clutched a thin blanket, listening to their celebration. They expected me to crawl back up and apologize in front of everyone. But the next morning, a letter was opened at the charity gala, and every word in it burned their entire legacy to ash, from reputation to fortune. My name is Eleanor Whitfield Nora, to those who knew me before my world turned upside down. I spent 37 years as a registered nurse at Lakeshore General, working the night shifts nobody else wanted, cleaning bedpans and holding hands of the dying. I raised my son Daniel alone in this Rust Belt city after his father decided a secretary from Cleveland was more exciting than a wife and infant son. Now, at 62, retired with a modest pension and arthritis in both knees, I found myself dragging a suitcase down wooden stairs to my son's basement while his dinner guests lingered over dessert. "Just for tonight, Mum?" Daniel had said, not meeting my eyes. His voice carried that new edge, the one that appeared after Savannah entered our lives 3 years ago. Savannah's college friends are staying over. The Pierces, the Weatherbys. You understand. I understood perfectly. I understood that my presence in the guest room upstairs, the room with the bay window overlooking Elm Street, would embarrass his wife. My sensible shoes didn't match the Louboutins lined up in the foyer. My Kohl's clearance blouse clashed with the silk and cashmere draped over the dining room chairs. The basement door groaned as Daniel pulled it open. The smell hit immediately mildew mixed with old paint cans and something metallic from the exposed pipes. A single bulb dangled from a wire, casting shadows that danced across concrete walls. In the corner sat a rusted folding cot from Daniel's Boy Scout days, a thin mattress that had seen better decades. "The bathroom's through there." He gestured vaguely toward a plywood door. "There's a space heater somewhere." Above us, Savannah's laugh tinkled like champagne glasses clinking. "Daniel, darling, where did you disappear to?" Her voice floated down through the floorboards, honeyed and false. "Coming, sweetheart." He turned back to me, and for a moment, just a flash, I saw my little boy who used to cry when I left for night shifts, who made me Mother's Day cards from construction paper. Then his jaw set, that new hardness returning. "Mum, please. Don't make this difficult." Difficult. I wanted to remind him about difficult. Difficult was working double shifts to pay for his orthodontia. Difficult was learning to repair our Ford Taurus from YouTube videos because mechanics were too expensive. Difficult was sitting in the emergency room at 2 a.m. when he broke his arm at 13. Insurance papers spread across my lap, calculating if we could afford the deductible. But I said nothing. I took my suitcase, the same brown American Tourister I'd bought at Goodwill for his college move-in day, and descended into the basement. The space heater didn't work. I discovered this after Daniel's footsteps had retreated upstairs, after the dinner party sounds crescendoed and finally faded around 11:30. The pipes above my head gurgled and pinged. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness beyond the bulb's reach, a steady rhythm like a medical monitor. I wrapped myself in the single wool blanket that smelled of mothballs and lay on the cot, springs creaking with every breath. Through the ceiling, I could map the house's skeleton. The kitchen, where Savannah's KitchenAid mixer, a wedding gift from the Pierces, sat unused on granite countertops. The dining room, where my mother's china had been relegated to the highest shelf. replaced by Waterford crystal. The living room, where family photos had been edited down to just Daniel and Savannah's engagement shots, their Turks and Keiko's honeymoon, their staged Christmas card portraits. As I lay there, something caught my eye. On a wooden shelf near the stairs, between old tax returns and Daniel's high school yearbooks, sat a manila folder marked Civic Bridges Foundation. The same logo I'd seen on the invitation magneted to their Sub-Zero refrigerator, the charity gala Savannah was organizing, the one where she'd been named Philanthropist of Tomorrow by the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce. I stood, the cot protesting, and retrieved the folder. Inside were receipts, invoices, contractor bids. Pearson Lark developments featured prominently, along with numbers that made my nurse's salary look like pocket change. But what stopped my breath was a sticky note in Savannah's handwriting. Dee's signature needed for collateral docs. Don't mention specific amounts. Footsteps crossed overhead. The basement door opened, and light from the kitchen spilled down. "Mum." Daniel's silhouette filled the doorframe. "I heard noise. Everything okay?" I slipped the folder back onto the shelf, my hands steady from decades of inserting IVs in the dark. "Just looking for another blanket." "Oh." He paused. "Mum, about tomorrow. Savannah thinks... She thinks it would be good if you apologized. At the gala. Publicly." "Apologized for what?" "For the tension. The difficulty you've caused. She has a speech prepared for you." I looked up at my son, backlit like a stranger. "I see. It's important, Mum, for the foundation, for our future. Our future. Not mine. Theirs. Good night, Daniel." The door closed. In the darkness, I made a decision. They wanted an apology. I'd give them something to remember. I pulled out my phone, its light harsh in the basement gloom, and began typing a message to Ruth Delgado, my neighbor from the old apartment complex. Ruth, whose nephew Miles worked as a private investigator. Ruth, who knew everyone in Lakeshore's non-profit world. "Need your help," I wrote. "Something's not right with the Civic Bridges Foundation." The pipes above continued their metallic symphony. Somewhere, water kept dripping. But for the first time since descending those stairs, I smiled. Daniel wasn't always like this. I keep his kindergarten photo in my wallet, gap-toothed grin. Cowboy's jersey too big for his small frame. Clutching the lunchbox I'd packed with peanut butter sandwiches cut into dinosaur shapes. That boy used to wait by the window for my headlights after night shifts, would run barefoot across our cramped apartment's linoleum to hug my tired legs. We lived in Riverside Gardens then, a complex where garden meant a patch of dead grass between parking spaces. After his father left, took the Camry and half our savings account, but left his golf clubs and credit card debt, it was just us against the world. I'd work 7 to 7 at the hospital, come home to find Daniel doing homework at our scratched dining table, the one we'd rescued from a yard sale. He never complained when dinner was leftover hospital cafeteria sandwiches, or when I fell asleep helping him with algebra. "We're a team, Mum," he'd say, his teenage voice cracking. "Always." He earned his engineering degree on scholarships and determination. Graduated summa cum laude from State. I wore my best dress, the navy one from JCPenney, to his graduation. Cried when they called his name. He was hired straight out of college by Brennan Construction. Worked his way up from junior engineer to project manager in 5 years. My son, who built things that would outlast us both. Then came Savannah. They met at a young professionals mixer downtown. the kind where they serve tiny foods on tiny plates and everyone pretends to enjoy jazz. She was magnetic, he told me breathlessly over our weekly coffee. Blonde hair like spun gold, laugh like music. Family owned half the commercial real estate in Lakeshore. The Pierces were old money, the kind with portraits in the country club and a family pew at First Presbyterian. She's different. Mum, Daniel said, his eyes bright with something I'd never seen before. She makes me want to be better. Better. As if the son who'd worked 2 jobs through college, who'd sent me money from his first paychecks despite my protests, who'd installed grab bars in my bathroom without being asked as if he wasn't enough already. The changes were gradual. First, our coffee dates moved from weekly to monthly. Savannah has this networking thing, he'd explain. Then his wardrobe evolved goodbye Target. Hello, Brooks Brothers. His accent shifted, consonants crisper. The Midwest drawl he'd inherited from me carefully scrubbed away. Why don't you come to dinner Sunday? Became, Savannah thinks we should establish boundaries. The engagement happened at the Pierce family compound on Lake Michigan. I wasn't invited to the party found out through Facebook like a distant acquaintance. In the photos, Daniel wore a tuxedo that cost more than my monthly pension. Savannah's ring caught the light like a small star, the kind of diamond that had its own insurance policy. At their wedding, I sat in the 3rd row. Savannah's mother had arranged the seating. Family dynamics can be so complicated, Mrs. Pierce had said, her smile sharp as winter ice. We wouldn't want to confuse the photographer. I watched my son promise his life to a woman who'd already begun erasing me from it. The receiving line moved quickly. Savannah's air kisses never quite reached my cheek. Daniel's hug was brief, distracted. In the wedding album, I appear in exactly 1 photo, a group shot, where I'm partially hidden behind Savannah's cousin from Connecticut. The house came next, a colonial in Westfield Heights, with a 3-car garage and kitchen island bigger than my entire apartment. Savannah documented the renovation on Instagram, hashtags like Choch Pierce Perfection and Choch Designed Life. My offers to help were politely declined. Mum, Savannah has a very specific vision, Daniel explained. She's hired professionals. Professionals. Not the woman who'd painted his childhood bedroom 3 times because he kept changing his favorite color. Sunday dinners became command performances where I sat at their dining table imported from Italy while Savannah discussed charity galas and Daniel discussed property values. They spoke in code about people I didn't know, places I'd never go. When I mentioned my volunteer work at the free clinic, Savannah's smile tightened. How grassroots, she'd say, then launch into her Civic Bridges foundation plans. How they were reimagining philanthropy for the modern age. Last month, I made the mistake of stopping by unannounced. Daniel's car was in the driveway, but Savannah answered the door in yoga clothes that cost more than my weekly groceries. Eleanor. Not Mom. Never Mom. Daniel's in a meeting. Through the doorway, I could see him on the couch, watching television. Our eyes met for a second before he looked away. I'll call first next time, I said. That would be best. Now, lying in their basement like unwanted furniture, I understood. I wasn't just being pushed aside, I was being erased. Savannah was building her perfect life, and I was an inconvenient reminder of where Daniel came from. The boy who'd once promised we were a team had chosen his side, and it wasn't mine. But Savannah had made one mistake. She'd forgotten that before I was Daniel's mother, before I was the embarrassing woman in sensible shoes. I was Eleanor Whitfield. I'd survived double shifts in the cardiac unit. I'd raised a child alone on nothing but determination and instant coffee. I'd held the hands of the dying and fought insurance companies for the living. She thought I'd simply disappear, fade into the background of their designer life. She thought wrong. The pipes hadn't stopped their gurgling symphony when the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the basement at 2:43 a.m. I knew the exact time because my phone screen was the only light source left. Then came the mechanical click of the furnace dying, followed by an eerie silence that made the dripping water sound like thunder. I fumbled my way to the stairs, hand trailing along the damp concrete wall. The circuit breaker was in the utility closet off the main hallway Daniel had shown me once, when I'd babysit their Maltese during their Aspen trip. The same dog that Savannah had mysteriously rehomed after it shed on her Hermes cushions. The house above lay in darkness too. I could hear Daniel's snoring from the master bedroom, a sound I remembered from when he was 5 with chronic adenoid problems. My hand found the utility closet door, then the cold metal of the breaker box. The main switch had tripped. As I flipped it back, light flooded the hallway, and I heard something else, rapid footsteps from upstairs. Then Savannah's voice, sharp with panic. "The presentation, Daniel. Wake up. The backup drive." A door slammed, feet on stairs, but heading up, not down. To the 3rd floor, Savannah's home office, what used to be the attic before she converted it into what she called her philanthropy headquarters. Curiosity pulled me forward. The 3rd floor stairs were carpeted in cream wool that muffled my steps. At the top, a sliver of light leaked from beneath the office door, left ajar in Savannah's haste. Through the gap, I could see her at her glass desk, frantically closing windows on her MacBook. But not before I glimpsed spreadsheets, numbers that made no sense for a charity foundation, numbers that looked more like the books I'd helped balance at the free clinic, except these showed money moving in circles out, then back in, then out again. She grabbed a leather notebook from the drawer, the kind with a lock, and shoved it into her desk safe along with a USB drive. Her hands shook as she spun the combination. Then she turned, and for a moment I thought she'd seen me. But she was looking at something on her phone, her face pale in the screen's glow. "Tomorrow," she muttered. "It all has to be perfect tomorrow." I backed away, descended the stairs on legs that remembered 30 years of night shifts, of moving silently through hospital corridors. Back in the basement, I sat on the cot and pulled out my phone again. Ruth had responded to my message with a string of question marks and one line, "Miles says he can meet tomorrow morning. Cottage Cafe, 8 a.m. But my mind was spinning with what I'd just seen. The notebook, the USB, the panic over a power outage that shouldn't have affected anything already saved. Unless she'd been working on something she didn't want traced, something that needed to be hidden even from automatic backups. I thought about the manila folder on the shelf, pulled it out again, this time using my phone's flashlight to study every page. The receipts told a story once you knew how to read them. Catering charges for events that matched no dates on the Foundation's public calendar. Consulting fees paid to companies I couldn't find on Google. And over, Pierce and Lark developments, like a pulse through every transaction. Then I found it a printed email, probably grabbed by mistake when someone was pulling documents. From Savannah to someone named Marcus at Pearson Lark, adjustment complete for Q3 Community Impact Report. Numbers now show 78% direct benefit to low-income housing. Board will approve the Riverside grant. D still thinks it's for actual construction. Keep it that way. D. Daniel. My son was being used as cover for something, and he didn't even know it. I photographed every page, every receipt, every fragment of evidence. My hands were steady, steadier than they'd been in years. This wasn't about being pushed into a basement or edited out of family photos anymore. This was about my son's name being used in what looked increasingly like fraud. The folder went back to its spot, carefully aligned with the dust pattern I'd disturbed. Let Savannah think her secret was safe. Let her believe the woman in the basement was beaten, broken, ready to apologize. At 6, I heard movement upstairs, coffee grinding, shower running, the practiced symphony of a household preparing for a big day. The charity gala was tonight. Savannah's triumph, where she'd parade her philanthropic success before Lakeshore's elite. Daniel came down at 7, carrying a garment bag. "Mum, your dress for tonight." Savannah picked it out. I unzipped it. Black. Shapeless. The kind of thing you'd wear to fade into walls. Of course. "The speech," he began. "I know," I said. "I'll apologize. Publicly. For causing difficulty." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you. This means everything to us." After he left, I dialed Ruth's number. "Change of plans," I said. "Bring Miles to the house. Park around the corner. And Ruth, tell him to bring his laptop. We're going to need to trace some financial records." I looked at the black dress, then at my phone's photo gallery full of evidence. Savannah wanted me to apologize. Oh, I'd give her something to remember. Ruth Delgado arrived at 8:15 sharp, parking her Toyota Corolla around the corner as instructed. With her came Miles Ortega, her nephew, 6 feet of former Marine turned private investigator, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. I met them at the back door, the one Savannah never used because it faced the neighbor's chain-link fence instead of manicured hedges. "Nora." Ruth hugged me tight, smelling of coffee and the lavender soap she'd used for 20 years. "You look tired." "Mija." "I've had better accommodations," I said, leading them through the kitchen. Savannah was at her Pilates class, Daniel at work. We had 2 hours. Miles set up at the kitchen island, his laptop spreading cables like IV lines. Ruth filled me in on the basics: foundation corruption, possible fraud. "What triggered your suspicion?" I showed him my phone photos, watched his expression sharpen as he scrolled through. "This is sophisticated," he said. "Shell companies, circular transactions. Someone knows what they're doing. Can you trace it?" "Public records are my specialty." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Civic Bridges Foundation, registered 18 months ago. Board of directors includes..." Interesting. 3 of the 5 board members are Pierce family associates. The other 2. He turned the screen toward me. "Ring any bells? Marcus Weatherby, CFO of Pearson Lark, Jennifer Lark, the Lark in Pearson Lark." The same names from Savannah's dinner parties, the ones whose presence had banished me to the basement. "The foundation's tax filings are public," Miles continued. "They claim to have raised $3.2 million for affordable housing in Riverside." He pulled up another window, but Riverside property records show no new construction permits, no land purchases, nothing. Just this. A document filled the screen. A consulting contract with Pearson Lark for $3 million for development planning services. "They're funneling charity money into their own company," Ruth said. "It's worse." Miles opened more windows, bank records, corporate filings, a maze of financial breadcrumbs. Look at this signature page from a loan document filed last week. $1.2 million, borrowed against future foundation grants. The guarantor, Daniel Whitfield. My coffee mug slipped, caught it just before it crashed. He wouldn't. His signature's right there, notarized 6 days ago. But I knew my son's signature had seen it evolve from boyhood scrawls to professional loops. This was close. But the D was wrong. The L too high. It's forged. Miles photographed the screen. That's federal fraud. Add it to tax evasion, charity fraud, money laundering. Savannah and her family are looking at serious prison time. We need concrete proof, I said. The actual documents, not just photos. Ruth smiled. Remember what you used to say during our night shifts? The best evidence is what they don't know you have. Miles pulled up the gala's website. Tonight's event, 500 guests, including major donors, city officials, media. They're announcing the Riverside Renewal Project, supposed to build 100 affordable units. He showed us the architectural renderings, beautiful facades that would never exist. The mayor's giving them a commendation. Channel 6 is covering it live. Perfect audience for an alternative announcement, Ruth said. We spent the next 3 hours building our case. Miles accessed every public database property records, corporate filings, tax documents. Ruth used her library connections to pull newspaper archives, finding a pattern of Pierce family developments that displaced low-income residents while claiming community improvement. I contributed what I'd photographed, plus something else, my memory of which spare key opened Savannah's office. At 11:30, Savannah's Tesla pulled into the driveway. We were already gone, but I'd left everything exactly as it was, the black dress hanging in the basement, the folder undisturbed on its shelf. Miles had one more surprise. My army buddy works at the state attorney's office. I sent him what we have, hypothetically. Of course. He says if someone were to file a formal complaint with evidence like this, they'd open an investigation immediately. After tonight? I said. Let her have her moment first. We met at Ruth's apartment to prepare. Not the speech Savannah had written, I'd found that in the dress pocket. 2 paragraphs of grovelling apology for my inability to appreciate modern philanthropy and my resistance to positive change. Instead, Miles helped me write something else. 1 page, single-spaced, every word a nail in their coffin. You'll need physical evidence at the gala, Miles said. Something people can see. I thought of the USB drive Savannah had locked in her safe, the leather notebook with its brass lock. I know what to get, but I'll need a distraction around 5 o'clock. Ruth grinned. Leave that to me. I have friends in the Lakeshore Herald. They've been dying for a real story about the Pierce family. Miles made copies of everything, one for the state attorney, one for the IRS, one for the Lakeshore Herald, one for Channel 6. Each packet included a cover letter on official-looking letterhead he'd designed, signed Concerned Citizens for Transparent Charity. One more thing, he said, pulling up Daniel's social media. Your son posted this yesterday. A photo of him signing papers, Savannah beside him, champagne glasses raised. The caption, proud to support Savannah's vision for Riverside major announcement tonight. My heart clenched. He had no idea what he'd really signed, what she'd made him part of. But after tonight, he would. Everyone would. You sure about this? Ruth asked. Once it's out there. My son's future is at stake, I said. His reputation, his career, possibly his freedom if he gets pulled into her crimes. Sometimes you have to burn something down to save what matters. Miles handed me a flash drive. Everything's on here, just in case you need backup documentation. I tucked it into my purse, next to the speech Savannah expected me to read. Tonight? She wanted an apology. Tonight. She'd get the truth instead. The letter had to be perfect, every word a scalpel. Every sentence designed to cut through lies without giving them room to deflect. I sat at Ruth's kitchen table at 3 p.m., laptop open. Miles and Ruth beside me as we crafted the document that would destroy the Pierce empire. Start with facts they can't deny, Miles advised. Document numbers, dates, specific transactions. I typed, the Civic Bridges Foundation, registered January 2023. EIN 842931 has systematically diverted $3.2 million in charitable donations through the following documented channels. Each paragraph built on the last. A careful architecture of evidence. Transaction IDs from the Federal Reserve. Property parcel numbers from county records. Contract reference numbers from the State Corporation Commission. No accusations, just facts. Lined up like dominoes. Here. Miles pulled up a document. The smoking gun. This email from Savannah to Marcus Weatherby. Timestamp November 15th, 4:17 p.m. Adjusted Q3 impact report now shows 78% direct benefit. Board will approve Riverside grant. Daniel remains unaware of allocation restructuring. I added it, including the full email header with its digital signature verification. Then came the forged loan documents. Daniel's falsified signature circled and annotated with "See attached handwriting analysis, Exhibit D." Ruth had been busy too. Glenmont Milling, their biggest donor, gave $500,000 last year. The CEO is Margaret Glenmont. She serves on 3 legitimate charity boards. She won't tolerate fraud. She handed me a list. These 12 donors represent 70% of their funding. Each one has a reputation to protect. We created individual packets for each the same core letter, but personalized with how their specific donation had been misused. Glenmont's money supposedly went to build a community center that existed only in photoshopped renderings. The Riverside Baptist Church's contribution was logged as purchasing lumber that Pierce and Lark billed at 3 times market rate. Now for the media strategy, Miles said. The Herald's evening edition deadline is 6 p.m. If Ruth's contact gets this by 5:30, they can run a breaking news alert during the gala. I kept writing, the undersigned formally requests immediate investigation by the State Attorney General's Office for violations of IRC Section 501c3, federal wire fraud statutes, and state charitable trust laws. The language was precise, legal. Nothing they could claim was emotional or vindictive, just facts and law, building to an inevitable conclusion. What about Daniel? Ruth asked gently. Have you written his part? This was the hardest section, a separate addendum, just for my son. Daniel, your signature was forged on documents dated November 12th. Check your calendar, you were in Chicago at the Morrison Bridge site inspection. The notary who supposedly witnessed your signature, Patricia Morse, was in Florida that week. You are a victim, not a perpetrator. The attached evidence proves your innocence, but requires immediate action to protect yourself legally. I included screenshots of his work calendar, his hotel receipt from Chicago, even the Instagram post he'd made from the construction site that day, metadata intact, timestamp visible. Miles set up the distribution plan. Simultaneous delivery is crucial. 6 sealed envelopes. Courier service. Signature required. He showed me the schedule. State Attorney at 5:45. Herald at 5:30. Channel 6 at 5:35. Glenmont and the other major donors get theirs at 5:50, just as cocktail hour starts. Daniel gets his at 6, when the program begins. The USB, I said. I need to get it from Savannah's safe. Ruth checked her watch. She'll be at the venue by 4 for setup. You have a window. We made copies, physical and digital. Miles uploaded everything to 3 different cloud servers. Emails scheduled to send at 6:15 to reporters at the Wall Street Journal, ProPublica, and the Chronicle of Philanthropy. Insurance, he said, in case they try to bury it locally. I practiced reading the letter aloud, timing it. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Short enough to hold attention, long enough to destroy everything. The Foundation's website, Ruth suddenly said. They have a donor portal where major contributors can log in to see impact reports. Miles grinned. Give me 10 minutes. His fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm not hacking, he clarified. Just preparing a redirect. If someone were to, say, upload a certain document to their public folder, which anyone with basic access could do, it would appear on every donor's dashboard. At 4:30, I stood to leave. The letter was perfect. Clinical in its precision. No anger, no bitterness, just truth arranged in devastating order. Nora, Ruth grabbed my hand. After tonight, everything changes. Everything already has, I said. Daniel stopped being my son the moment he let her put me in that basement. Tonight. I'm just making it official. Miles handed me a burner phone. For emergencies, we'll be at the gala, in the back. Ruth's +1 is mysteriously ill, so I'm filling in. I drove to the house in Ruth's car, as predicted. Savannah's Tesla was gone. Daniel's BMW too, he'd texted earlier about stopping at the office before the gala. The house stood empty. Afternoon light slanting through windows I'd once helped clean. The spare key to Savannah's office was still where I'd remembered, tucked inside a fake succulent on the bookshelf. Her safe was behind a framed photo of the Pierce family yacht. The combination wasn't hard to guess their anniversary date, the one she posted about constantly on social media. Inside the leather notebook, the USB drive, and something else, a second set of books, handwritten, showing the real flow of money, every bribe, every kickback, every dollar diverted. She'd been stupid enough to document her own crimes. I photographed everything. Then took the USB and one page from the notebook, the one with Daniel's forged signature, and a note in Savannah's hand. Practice D's signature notary won't look close. At 5:25, I sat in the parking lot of Foxhall Grand Hotel, watching limos and Teslas arrive. Inside my purse, the letter, the USB, the notebook page. On my phone, confirmation texts from the courier service. All packages delivered. Signatures obtained. Margaret Glenmont stepped out of a Bentley, checking her phone. Her face went pale. She showed it to her husband, then walked quickly inside, not stopping for the photographers. 5:40. The Herald's news alert lit up phones across the parking lot, breaking major charity under investigation for fraud. 5:45. Channel 6's van screeched into the lot, reporters jumping out with cameras. 5:50. More donors reading their packets, voices rising in anger. 6 o'clock. Time for my entrance. I walked through the lobby in the shapeless black dress, invisible as always. But in my hand, I carried the truth, and the truth, as they say, burns everything it touches. The Foxhall Grand's ballroom glittered like a jewellery box, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow fragments across tables draped in ivory silk. 500 of Lakeshore's finest filled the space, their laughter mixing with jazz from the quartet in the corner. Behind the stage, a 20-foot banner proclaimed, "Civic Bridges Foundation Building Tomorrow's Communities Today." I entered through the service corridor, the path invisible people take. Waiters nodded at me, one woman in service black among many. The ballroom's layout spread before me. Savannah at the head table, radiant in emerald green, accepting air kisses from city councilmen. Daniel beside her, checking his phone with increasing frequency. The mayor at the podium, adjusting his microphone. Margaret Glenmont stood near the bar, her husband and lawyer flanking her, all three studying phone screens. Other major donors clustered in agitated groups, their festive mood evaporating like champagne bubbles. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor's voice boomed, "please take your seats for this evening's program." I positioned myself near the side wall, partially hidden behind a pillar draped in tulle and fairy lights. From here, I could see everything: the stage, the crowd, the service door where Channel 6's cameras were trying to push through despite security. Savannah glided to the podium, her smile bright enough to power the chandeliers. "Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the future of Lakeshore. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge someone very special, my mother-in-law, Eleanor Whitfield." Heads turned, searching. The spotlight found me against the wall. Eleanor has been struggling to understand our modern approach to philanthropy. But tonight, she's graciously agreed to share some words about the importance of supporting progress, even when change is difficult. She gestured for me to come forward. The crowd applauded politely, already losing interest. I walked toward the stage, my sensible shoes silent on the carpet, the black dress making me look like a shadow against all their shimmer. Daniel met me at the steps, his face tight with something between embarrassment and relief. "Mom," he whispered, pressing a folded paper into my hand, Savannah's prepared speech. "Just read it. Please." I took the paper, took the microphone, looked out at 500 faces expecting submission. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady from years of talking to families in hospital corridors. "I was asked to apologize tonight, to admit my difficulties in accepting change." Savannah's smile widened. She reached for Daniel's hand, the picture of gracious victory. "But first," I continued, pulling out my own letter, "I need to share something with all of you." The smile flickered. I saw her lean forward, mouth forming the beginning of an objection. "The Civic Bridges Foundation has raised $3.2 million in your names. Your generosity was meant to build homes for families in Riverside, to create community centers, to change lives." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Margaret Glenmont stood straighter. "Transaction records show a different story. Federal Reserve Transfer ID 7829452901, $500,000 from Glenmont Milling, diverted to Pearson Lark Developments for consulting services that never occurred." "This is inappropriate." Savannah started toward me. I kept reading. "Property parcel 452.8B, supposedly purchased for affordable housing, remains an empty lot owned by Pierce Holdings. The community center you funded exists only in Photoshop. County Permit Office shows no building applications filed." The murmurs became gasps. Phones appeared. Recording. Contract 2024 CF 1847 shows Pearson Lark billing the foundation 3 times market rate for phantom materials. Email timestamp November 15th, 4:17 p.m. From Savannah Pierce Whitfield to Marcus Weatherby. Daniel remains unaware of allocation restructuring. Daniel's hand fell from Savannah's. He stared at her, then at me, his face cycling through confusion to comprehension to horror. "Mum, what are you? Your signature was forged." "Daniel." I held up the notebook page. November 12th. You were in Chicago. She practiced your signature to guarantee loans you never knew existed. The service doors burst open. Channel 6's cameras pushed through, red lights blinking. The Herald's photographer appeared at another entrance. Security seemed frozen, unsure whether to stop them or the woman at the microphone. Savannah lunged for the mic. "She's having an episode. My mother-in-law has dementia. I have evidence." I pulled out the USB, held it high. Financial records, emails, the real books, handwritten, documenting every crime. Margaret Glenmont's voice cut through the chaos. "I want that evidence, now." "The state attorney already has it," I said. "So does the Herald. Channel 6 and the IRS? Check your phones, the story's already breaking." Across the room, phones chimed and buzzed like angry wasps. The Herald's alert. The Channel 6 breaking news banner. Screenshots spreading on social media like wildfire. The mayor stepped away from the head table, his assistant whispering urgently in his ear. The city comptroller was on her phone, face grave. "You bitter old woman!" Savannah's composure finally cracked, her voice shrill. "You couldn't stand that Daniel chose me, that he outgrew you. I'm not finished." I returned to the letter. "The Riverside Renewal Project you're announcing tonight, the one my son unknowingly guaranteed with his forged signature, is designed to displace 800 low-income families while enriching Pearson Lark by $40 million. A woman's voice from the crowd. "My grandmother lives in Riverside." "Mine too. Those are our church members." Daniel grabbed the microphone from my hand, but not to stop me. He turned to face the crowd. "Then Savannah?" His voice broke. "Did you forge my signature?" Her silence was answer enough. "Ladies and gentlemen," a new voice announced from the main entrance. "Special Agent Patricia Reeves, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We need everyone to remain calm and seated." FBI agents filed in, their navy windbreakers stark against the evening finery. One approached Savannah, speaking quietly. Her face went white beneath her foundation. "Daniel." She reached for him. "You don't understand my family. The pressure we can explain." He stepped back. "You used me. You used my name, my reputation, my mother's absence from my life for money." The agent placed her hand on Savannah's elbow. "Mrs. Pierce Whitfield, please come with us." As they led her toward the exit, she turned back, mascara streaking. "This is your fault," she screamed at me. "You destroyed everything." "No," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "You built your empire on lies and theft. I just told the truth." The room erupted, donors demanding answers, media pushing forward, FBI agents taking statements, the mayor's hasty exit, the band packing up their instruments. Through it all, Daniel stood frozen on the stage, staring at the banner behind us, "Building Tomorrow's Communities Today." The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. The letter's full contents projected onto the ballroom's presentation screen, Miles doing from the AV booth. Each page magnified for all to see transaction records, forged signatures, the handwritten confession from Savannah's notebook. The FBI agents had tried to stop the projection, but the damage was done. 500 witnesses and dozens of cameras captured every damning word. Section 1. My voice echoed through the microphone as I read. Systematic diversion of charitable funds between January 2023 and November 2024. Civic Bridges Foundation received $3.2 million in donations. Traceable transfers show $2.8 million routed through shell companies to Pearson Lark development accounts. Margaret Glenmont stood near the stage now, her lawyer beside her. "Every transaction," she called out. "We want every illegal transaction documented." I continued. Shell company, Riverside Community Partners LLC, registered in Delaware. EEN 92-784-6523, received foundation funds on March 3rd, March 29th, April 12th. The LLC's only listed activity paying consulting fees to Pearson Lark. The LLC's registered agent Savannah Pierce Whitfield. The screen showed bank statements, the money's path highlighted in yellow like a disease spreading through financial vessels. Section 2, Forgery and Wire Fraud. Loan document LP 2024-8974, dated November 12th. Bears Daniel Whitfield's signature as guarantor for $1.2 million. Handwriting analysis confirms forgery. Daniel's verified location that date: Morrison Bridge site, Chicago, Illinois. Supporting evidence includes: Daniel had sunk into a chair, head in his hands. Around him, the chaos intensified. FBI agents photographed evidence displays. The mayor's abandoned speech fluttered from the podium. Donors lined up to give statements to law enforcement. Mrs. Whitfield. Agent Reeves approached. "We'll need that USB drive as evidence." I handed it over. "There are copies with the state attorney, the IRS, and multiple media outlets." She nodded approvingly. "Thorough." The screen now showed emails between Savannah and her father, Richard Pierce. His words burned across the white projection. "Savannah. Ensure the foundation papers can't be traced back to the main company. Daniel's reputation is our insurance policy. His engineering credentials legitimize everything." A collective gasp. They'd planned to use my son from the beginning. Section 3, Conspiracy to Commit Real Estate Fraud. The Riverside Renewal Project, announced tonight, would have displaced 812 families from rent-controlled housing. Pearson Lark's internal documents show plans to build luxury condos on the cleared land. Projected profit, $42 million. Those are my constituents. City Councilwoman Maria Santos stood up. Families I've represented for 15 years. The screen shifted to architectural renderings, 2 versions side by side. The public version showed modest, affordable housing. The internal Pearson Lark version revealed glass towers, rooftop pools, a marketing tagline, "Riverside Luxe, where industrial meets elegance." I kept reading. Each word a nail. Foundation board members complicit in fraud: Marcus Weatherby, CFO of Pearson Lark; Jennifer Lark, co-owner; Patricia Morse, notary who falsified witnessing Daniel's signature while vacationing in Florida. "Stop this." Richard Pierce burst through the service entrance, his face purple with rage. "This is slander. Our lawyers will destroy you." Agent Reeves stepped forward. "Mr. Pierce, you're just in time. We have questions about your emails." The projection switched to more correspondence. Richard Pierce instructing Savannah on how to structure the charity for maximum tax benefits while minimizing actual charitable work. How to select board members who wouldn't ask questions. How to keep Daniel manageable and unaware. My son, I said into the microphone, looking directly at Daniel, was not a co-conspirator. He was a mark. His engineering reputation, his honest belief in helping communities, his signature, all tools in your fraud. Daniel stood slowly, walked to the microphone. His voice came out strangled. I signed papers she told me were for permits, construction approvals. I never read. I trusted. The federal investigation will clear you, Agent Reeves told him. The evidence Mrs. Whitfield provided shows clear proof you were deceived. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at the screen, at an email from Savannah to her best friend. Dee's mother is the last obstacle. Once she's marginalized, he'll sign anything. Men always choose wives over mothers. The room had gone quiet enough to hear the chandeliers tinkling above. Section 4. Tax evasion. The Foundation claimed tax-exempt status while functioning as a money laundering operation for Pearson Lark. IRS code violations include: Enough. Savannah's mother, Victoria Pierce, stood from the head table. Diamonds glittered at her throat as she surveyed the destruction of her family's reputation. Richard, we're leaving. I'm afraid not, Agent Reeves said. We have warrants for Richard Pierce, Marcus Weatherby, Jennifer Lark, and Patricia Morse. You're all needed for questioning. The screen now showed the grand finale, a summary page, with total damages $3.2 million in stolen donations. 812 families targeted for displacement. 4 companies implicated in fraud. Estimated 20 years of prison time across all defendants. This concludes the evidence summary, I said. Full documentation is available through the FBI, State Attorney, and tomorrow morning's Herald. The website civicbridgesscandal.com will maintain public records of all proceedings. Channel 6's reporter pushed forward. Mrs. Whitfield, why did you wait until tonight to reveal this? I looked at the camera. Knowing my words would replay endlessly, they wanted a public apology for causing them difficulty. Consider this my apology. I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner. The ballroom erupted again. FBI agents escorting Pierce family members out, donors demanding immediate foundation audits, media broadcasting live. The charity banner behind the stage came loose at one corner, sagging like a deflated dream. Through the chaos, Daniel approached me. His tuxedo was rumpled. His face aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Mum, he said. The basement. Making you sleep there. You chose her, I said simply. And she chose crime. Now everyone faces consequences. The house is in her name. The cars. Everything. I'll lose it all. You'll survive. I raised you to survive worse than this. The Foxhall Grand's ballroom looked like a disaster zone. Overturned champagne flutes, abandoned Hermes clutches, chairs scraped back at harsh angles. The Civic Bridges banner had completely fallen now, lying across the stage like a shroud. FBI evidence markers dotted tables where $500 a plate dinners sat untouched. Daniel stood before the head table, mechanically signing forms Agent Reeves placed before him. This confirms you'll cooperate fully with the investigation, she said. Your mother's evidence has already cleared you of criminal liability, but we need your testimony about what you believed you were signing. Everything, he said hollowly. I'll tell you everything. Across the room, Richard Pierce was in handcuffs, still blustering about lawsuits and connections. Victoria Pierce followed, her diamonds catching the light as FBI agents escorted her past the very donors they'd courted for years. Marcus Weatherby tried to slip out through the kitchen, but was stopped at the door. Jennifer Lark was already crying, mascara running in black rivers. But Savannah stood perfectly still as Agent Reeves read her rights. Her green dress, so elegant an hour ago, looked garish under the harsh emergency lights the FBI had brought in. She stared at me across the chaos, her eyes empty of their usual calculation. "Was it worth it?" she asked me, voice carrying despite the noise. "Destroying your own son to get to me." "I didn't destroy him," I replied. "I saved him from you." The Herald's photographer captured the moment the two of us facing off across the ruined gala. My black dress against her green. Truth against lies. A lawyer in a $1,000 suit approached Daniel. "Mr. Whitfield, I'm James Morrison from Morrison, Krensky and Associates. Ms. Glenmont has retained us on your behalf. Given the fraudulent nature of your marriage and the forged documents, we can file for immediate annulment and asset protection." Daniel looked at me, then at the lawyer. "Do it." "No." Savannah lunged forward, but an agent held her back. "Daniel, you can't. Everything we built nothing," Daniel said. "You built a crime syndicate on my reputation." The next 30 minutes passed in precise legal choreography. Lawyers appeared like vultures, representing various donors, each filing immediate injunctions against the foundation. The city comptroller announced a freeze on all Civic Bridges assets. The state attorney's office set up a table in the lobby, taking witness statements. Someone from the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit arrived, adding federal gravity to the scene. Margaret Glenmont approached me as I stood by the windows, watching police cars multiply in the parking lot. "Mrs. Whitfield," she said, "that took extraordinary courage." "It took a mother's love," I corrected. "The real kind. The kind that tells hard truths." She handed me a business card. "When the dust settles, I'm launching a legitimate housing initiative for Riverside. We could use someone like you, someone who sees through the polish to the truth." I pocketed the card. Outside, Savannah was being led to a police car, her designer heels catching on the pavement. She stumbled, and for a moment looked like what she really was, a 31-year-old woman who'd gambled everything on greed and lost. Daniel appeared beside me. "Mum, I need to say, not tonight." I cut him off. "Tonight, you process. Tomorrow, you rebuild. Next week, maybe we talk. Where will you go, Ruths?" "For now." I turned to face him fully. "Daniel, you're going to lose the house, the cars, the country club membership. You'll probably have to move back to Riverside. Maybe find a smaller firm that'll take a chance on you despite the scandal." He nodded miserably. "Good," I said. "That's where you'll find yourself again. The real Daniel. The one who ate spaghetti celebrating A's. Who worked 2 jobs through college. Who built things that mattered. Not this." I gestured at the destroyed gala. "This was never you." "I loved her," he whispered. "You loved who she pretended to be. We all did. At first. The difference is, I kept watching after the performance ended." Agent Reeves approached one last time. "Mrs. Whitfield, we'll need you to testify before the grand jury. Are you willing?" "Every word," I said. As I walked through the devastation toward the exit, I passed the podium where 40 minutes ago I'd been expected to grovel. The microphone was still on, humming faintly. I stopped, picked it up one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to the few dozen people still remaining lawyers, agents, journalists, and shell-shocked donors. This is what I actually came to say tonight. I held up Savannah's prepared apology speech, the one about my difficulties accepting progress. I apologize for my inability to embrace change, I read. I apologize for making my son choose between his past and his future. I apologize for failing to understand modern philanthropy. I tore the paper in half, then quarters, then let the pieces flutter to the floor like snow. The only apology I owe is this: I'm sorry I stayed silent while criminals used my son's name. I'm sorry I didn't trust my instincts sooner. But mostly, I'm sorry for every family in Riverside who almost lost their homes to greed dressed up as charity. I set down the microphone and walked toward the door where Ruth and Miles waited. Behind me, I heard the Channel 6 reporter doing her live broadcast. In an extraordinary turn of events tonight, a mother's determination to protect her son has exposed one of the largest charity frauds in state history. Outside, the November air was sharp and clean after the suffocating perfume and corruption of the ballroom. Ruth wrapped her arm around me. You did it, Miha. You burned it all down. Just the lies, I said. The truth was always there. It just needed someone to say it out loud. As we walked to Ruth's car, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. I'm sorry. For everything. When you're ready, I'll be here. The real me this time. I deleted it. He'd have to earn his way back to being my son. Just like I'd had to earn my way to this moment through basement nights and bitter revelations. Through choosing truth over comfort. The Foxhall Grand grew smaller in the rearview mirror, its lights still flashing with emergency vehicles. Tomorrow, the headlines would scream the story across the country. Pearson Lark would crumble. Savannah would face trial. Daniel would lose everything material but might, if he was lucky, find his soul again. But tonight I sat in Ruth's Toyota, heading back to a friend's small apartment, carrying nothing but the satisfaction of a promise kept the promise I'd made in that freezing basement just 24 hours ago. They'd wanted an apology. Instead, I gave them the truth. And the truth, as I'd told them, burns everything it touches, especially lies dressed up as legacy. This is the only apology I owed, I said quietly to the darkness beyond the window. I'm sorry I was silent for so long. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story of justice and truth resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel for more powerful narratives. What would you have done in Eleanor's situation? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment and love hearing your perspectives on these incredible tales of human courage.